But there's a lot of different countries right now, like China, Japan, a lot of Eastern European countries that are really moving away from fossil fuel energy.
Hello.
Hello.
Baklava.
Isn't that a dessert?
It is.
Well, welcome back to our Talk and Play series, which is like a podcast. It's like a baklava, but better.
Yeah, they're really tasty, but our podcast is tastier.
Yeah. So if you're new to this type of video, it is a podcast. We just like having something on in the background for you guys to watch and for something for us to do while we talk about things, because we find it gets the juices moving, so to speak.
Gets those man juices moving.
So today's subject is something that's kind of literally close to home. We live in a place that the economy is very based around oil and the fossil fuel industry. And there's an election going on, and there's a lot of talk about oil versus clean energy and those kind of projects. In the past and currently, I do work in clean energy fields. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to discuss and look at the different sides of it.
It's going to be very fun.
Very fun.
This is going to be the most fun you've had all day.
I'm going to make it fun. It's going to be very informative. Let's put it that way.
Fun me, Dustin.
Funyun?
Fun me, Daddy.
So there's a lot of misnomers about both sides, to be honest with you, and it's one of those things where it's hard to trust either side. And we talked about this a little bit in one of the other week's episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But
there you go.
And there you have it.
Yep.
So, how much do you know about clean energy and oil?
5.
Five things.
There you have it.
So one of the things that is heavily debated on is whether clean energy is the way to go, and you have a lot of people say, "Whoa, what about when the sun goes down or there's no wind?" And from a very minimal look at it, that can be a thing. But what you have to realize is that solar fields and all this other technology, it's come a long ways in the last 10 to 20 years. There was wind fields that were put up, 2.5 to 3 decades ago. You okay? And the technology back then wasn't as good as it is now. It just wasn't. So specifically for solar fields, you'll get people that will say, well, the sun goes down. Okay, yes, but the sun,
You can't argue with that.
You can't.
The sun goes down. But
during peak times, the sun is up for, let's say, 14 to 16 hours a day, okay? In the summertime. Now, the sun going down is actually something that's taken into effect in solar fields. So what'll be done is that, so we have these high efficiency solar panels that we actually put in extra ones to accommodate for that. So they actually collect enough energy that we can store that energy in cells so that the nighttime doesn't bother it, because we actually stored 30% more energy than what we needed to. So you actually never have a lull in that energy outsource. And the same thing for wind is, yes, the wind is not always blowing, but there's a reason why the wind towers are so damn big, is because while there's no wind down low, there is always wind and jet streams that are happening up above. And this is why, flight paths for airplanes and whatnot are always put into these jet streams to gain a tailwind or whatever have you. So you always do have wind, and the bearings inside of the windmills are so advanced that they need very, very minimal force to create a friction type energy. So those are a couple of misnomers I wanted to clear up. But anything else?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's like, I feel like the biggest thing is about getting better batteries
Oh yeah,
that can store all this extra energy that you're outputting.
Yes.
Because if your batteries are crappy, you're not going to be able to make up for that the time, like in case of solar panels during the night. You're not going to be able to store enough to really offset that without having a huge amount of extra cells.
Yes, and you need those extra cells right now. But I mean, that's something that's always being reinvented, like reinventing the wheel, so to speak, is that we're always coming up with new things. And you can do it, and if you don't have the funds, like let's say, solar is quite expensive to set up, first of all. But as you move on into the clean energy field, you'll notice that there's never really one solution that's, I remember this one. Oh no.
It's down and jump to get off.
You'll never really see a single solution for any single area. Like for example, you might see wind and you might see solar in the same place, or you might see wind and geothermal, or you might see nuclear that is subsidized by the solar fields. And it's one of those things where it's all give and take. And sure, oil is going to be it's going to be a part of it. But there's a lot of different countries right now, like China, Japan, a lot of Eastern European countries that are really moving away from fossil fuel energy. And in a lot of these countries, China, for example, has a 10 to 15 year plan to be like 60% green? I can't remember what it is. But if you live in North America and you live in a place where oil is your biggest industry, this is something that you have to look into. Yeah, sure, you can manufacture all you want, but in 10 to 15 years, if the buying power in the industry drops by 60%, what are you making all this oil for? And of course, there's the greenhouse gas, and there's all that effect, and if the fossil fuel industry doesn't just power the energy sector, there's a lot of other things like plastics, for example.
And that's like I was telling you about that. I watched this interview with Bill Gates that he did at was it MIT maybe, and that was kind of one of the things he was talking about. Everybody's like, oh, we gotta go to clean energy. But at the same time, it's like now you have to reform all your processes and your manufacturing.
Yes.
Because they have to now be completely different to be able to run off this clean energy. Because if you don't, we can't make steel anymore. We can't make plastics. You can't do any of that kind of manufacturing because the current processes use fossil fuels to power it.
And they were saying, all these financial guys got on stage and said, we're going to rate companies in terms of their CO2 output. And we're going to say this company puts out a lot of CO2 and financial markets are magical, and all of a sudden the CO2 will stop being emitted. And I was like, okay, how are you going to make steel? Do you guys on Wall Street, do you have something in your desks that makes steel? What? Where's the fertilizer, cement, plastic? Where's it going to come from? Do planes fly through the sky because of some number you put on a spreadsheet? So the madness of this so-called finance is the solution. I just don't get that. There is no substitute for how the industrial economy runs today.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we have to start looking at what is the most detrimental to the world right now, and that is the climate change and the change in that in weather paradigms. So we have to really start looking at this section of it, but at the same time, what you have to start looking at is, like you said, what other processes are affected by getting rid of fossil fuels, and it is the production of anything plastic. It is like lubricants is another big one. There's a lot of these things that we have to take into account, and we have to start somewhere. So we start with clean energy, and there is solutions for the manufacturing part of it. Like, for example, hemp. has the ability to create an oil through processing, and then you can create products based on this. But to be honest with you, the manufacturing portion of that is astronomical, and we are decades out from being able to do something like that. I don't know if you guys find this interesting. I find it interesting because I have a direct hand in it.
Yeah.
And if you're asleep right now, wake up.
Wake up!
Wake up!
Why'd you put on a makeup?
I don't know.
I mean, it's something that it concerns everybody. Everybody, you know, we want to try and move towards greener solutions.
Yeah.
You know, better, more efficient. Oh, you gotta be pooping me. Better solutions to all this stuff. Because I mean, yeah, our emissions and greenhouse gases, we're trying to bring those down. And you know, one of the solutions that would help is better processes and green energy.
Yeah.
But we're so ingrained in our other uses of energy that it's really hard to get into those things, even though we have the technology to actually transition over to these other methods and have them be usable is still really far out and is really hard for us to get away from. Because like Dustin mentioned before, where we're from, oh no. We're really ingrained on fossil fuels, and our economy is really based on that. And to get away from that is very difficult, just because of how ingrained it is in our economy. And that just goes worldwide. You know, everybody's ingrained into these types of fuel that to get away from it is really hard and is going to be really costly.
It is, and I think one of the biggest things is it's not just the economy that it's kind of ingrained into. It's very much ingrained into our culture here. Oh my god, dude.
This is very difficult.
Like, oil field workers hold a big stake in this, where we're from, and everybody wants to get them working again, and everybody, you know, nobody wants to go towards the clean energy because it's our norm. It's what we're used to, and it's what people are familiar with and comfortable with. But unless we start looking towards the future, like, to be honest, we had a good run. There's 40 years of the oil industry here being very lucrative and very important for our economy. But like I said before, like in the next 10 to 20 years, if we stay where we are now, our economy is going to die. Because the rest of the world is moving towards electric cars. They're moving towards nuclear energy, solar energy, wind energy, thermal energy from volcanoes. Like we're moving technologically. We are moving so fast in this field, and honestly, that's part of the reason why I want to talk about this, because I always hear this argument. Oh, everybody, you know, all these lefties are always talking about clean energy, but what are you actually doing about it? Is there anything actually going on? And that's kind of the reason why I want to talk about this.
At this point, it's just a buzzword.
Exactly.
Because everybody's like, oh yeah, we need clean energy. He said clean energy. Yeah, perfect. This is the guy.
Yeah. So who's doing anything about it? And I just wanted to let everybody know, like, technologically, we, in the last 10 years, we've made some substantial technological advances, but we're still nowhere near where we would like to be, and we're working on it. It's definitely coming, and there's, like, Canada, for example, where we're from. 10 years ago, we had no stake in the world in terms of clean energy. Canada, unfortunately, is one of the most behind countries in technology in the world, in terms of first world countries. We fall behind the US, China, Japan, most of Europe. We fall behind all of them. And that can be a problem as well, but we're moving forward. So for example, Canada, no stake in clean energy, 10 years ago, but now in terms of the world, we are, I think it's like 3.4% of the Earth's total wind energy. Which is, it sounds like a low number, but for a company that's just came out of the doors here recently, it's huge.
Well, and then you also think about it, it's like, okay, 3.4%, But out of 195 countries in the world,
Exactly.
and most of them, especially all the ones that are higher than us in green energy, like you're talking about the US, you're talking about China, you're talking about Japan, they're all much bigger than us.
Yeah.
You know, much bigger population than us. So, you know, we're still not doing bad.
Yeah. No. We're definitely coming into our own. We're definitely placing ourselves out there and putting ourselves in the race. It just takes some time, and there's a lot of things that hold us back, especially where we're from, in Western Canada, where oil is very prevalent. So we struggle with getting funding for projects, and we work with the rest of the world and coming up with different solutions. But yeah, when the funding's not there and you have the oil lobbyists that are all over the politics of it and not letting the assets go towards clean energy, it's very hard to move forward. It's like we have the support from the rest of the world. We now have the technology, but now it's the political game that's holding us back.
Yeah.
And that's hard to get over.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's what a lot of problems stem from, is just politics.
Yep.
You know, if we didn't have to deal with the politics of everything, every country would be so much further ahead.
Yep.
But no, you have to deal with the politics of, oh, well, we don't do business with this country, we don't do business with this country, we rely on all this type of energy, or, oh, you know, one of our greatest contributors of funds is this company, and they're an oil company, so we give them some bonuses and some incentives because, you know, they're so good to us. Just that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So it makes it hard to advance.
Yeah. Like it is the biggest struggle right now. And
it's too bad we don't have more people like Bill Gates who actually does something with his money. He does something with his influence where he gets together other billionaires and starts these groups that are pushing towards, you know, advancements, more R&D, more everything, rather than, you know, I'm just out for my bottom line. I'm just looking for money.
Yeah. I don't know. And I hope I haven't sounded too preachy. I'm really trying not to be. But there is a lack of information out there, and it's something that really frustrates me, is that, you know, we always have these news stories about how climate change is a big deal. We always have these news stories about how climate change is a joke. And it depends what source you're looking at. But we really don't have anything that's like, here are the projects that we're working towards. Here's our plan for becoming a clean country. Here's our outgoing program for, we want to save 20% on fossil fuel energy in the next 10 years. Like, we don't have any of that. It doesn't happen very often that makes it to the news.
Yeah.
And then that's when you get these misnomers. It's like, okay, well, these guys are bitching all the time, but they're never doing anything about it. It's like, well, there is. It's just, it's behind closed doors and nobody's really talking about it.
Yeah.
One of the coolest things that I ever worked on, just for an interesting fact, was, do you know where St. Lucia is?
Yeah.
So, putting a water reservoir into the base of a volcano, and it's got a full weather system inside of it. So in the water reservoir, the natural heat source of the magma coming underneath it, heating it up, you get the condensation, which produces the steam, up into the turbines, creating power, and then at the top you got a condensation blanket, quote unquote, and then it rains down back into the reservoir. So you got a constant energy, and that solution actually powers the entire island of St. Lucia.
Yeah, it's a self-sustaining power source because it's just feeding back into itself to give itself power.
And then, but here in Canada, like I've told people this, or other people have told people this of a project that was done, and it's like, well, that seems like a waste of money to put, a $50 million project at the base of a volcano that could get destroyed. Okay, but if a volcano doesn't erupt until 50 years and you've saved $500 million on energy costs and facilitation, that's what we call a positive return on investment. Is that not worth it?
Mm-hmm.
And those are the types. Those are the types of things that the technology is out there. We're just not doing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, feel free in the comments. Like, if you guys want to ask me any questions. I don't know everything, obviously, especially on the political side, but I can let you know. Like, I can talk to you about what I work on and.
And
have worked on in the past.
You do some research on it too. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff going on out there that a lot of people probably just don't know about.
Yeah, nope.
Oh God.
We have this thing that's called smart building integration, which basically turns a building into a giant robot. Mm-hmm. It all talks to each other through analytics and algorithms, and you save a ton of money on energy costs. And my company's statement is to better the world. That's what we're trying to do, you know.
I see.
So the people that started our company like 40 years ago, that was always their mission statement. They created stuff that made the world better, and that was always what they were going for, and that's kind of the company practice that we've always kind of kept. And a lot of things that I've talked about here I kind of worked on also before I came to this company. But I have a high respect for those types of companies that don't just look at the bottom line, like they're really trying to make a difference. And yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, if you guys ever want to talk about it, just leave a message here and ask some questions, and I can kind of enlighten you on a couple of things. Or if you're even thinking of getting into this field, I can tell you what you need.
And honestly, like, it's great if you do, because we need people to be, you know, the inventors, the people who are constantly making these innovations.
Yeah.
You know, we need those kinds of people, otherwise there wouldn't be any advancements in these fields.
And that's kind of why I got into this field was, you know, you always read these stories of climate change or atrocities going on in the world. It's like, yeah, but what can I do about it? Mm-hmm. And I finally just went, well, what I could do about it is I could work in it and actually make a difference.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really all there is to it. You know? You need people to work in it, and that's fudge me. Well, we've been going on a bit too long, so
this is a long episode. Yeah. Holy crap!
So we'll leave it there. Let us know what you guys think. I mean, you know, not everybody is really informed on it, or maybe not even that interested in it. Hopefully, you guys were interested in some of the stuff we talked about here. You know, do some research on it. I mean, it affects us all, and it's something that people should be more aware of, because I feel like, especially coming up in the future, more and more elections are going to be based around pushing towards these new, you know, these new energies, these new technologies, and it is important to be informed about it. You know, whether you don't like politics or not, it's still good to to be informed about this kind of stuff, because, you know, whether you can help directly or indirectly, anything's good. So
yeah, I agree.
And on that note, we'll see you guys next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.